Good evening. My name is John Yakim, and I'm a resident of Monroeville. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Manager McKinney, Solicitor Dice, good evening to all of you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to address you in council this evening. Over the past 9 or 10 months, our community has been dragged through the mud because of an alleged HIPAA breach. And I have truly been troubled by some of the responses of council and you, Mr. Mayor. While HHS will ultimately decide if our dispatch center is or is not a covered entity, it seems to me that many people have fixated on whether or not there is a HIPAA violation, as if an HHS verdict of a non-violation would be a redemption. I think this is ludicrous. While it is yet to be determined if there is or is not a HIPAA violation, by piecing together the various newspaper reports and listening to members of council at meetings, it has become obvious to many that people who were not authorized to view sensitive material have. And it also has been apparent that this was going on for a very long time. In other words, our privacy was violated, and it went on for a very long time. One of the more troubling portions of this entire soap opera has been the response of you, Mr. Mayor, and the minority of council. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Duncan has repeated time and time again that he was offended by the alleged language of Mrs. Drumhiller in an executive session. What no one has ever mentioned is what was it that made Mrs. Drumhiller go off in such a manner. I will tell you my opinion. It is that she was angered by the information that was leaking out of our very own system. This executive session was the first time all of council and the mayor were made completely aware of what was being leaked by our system. Quite frankly, I am not surprised by her anger. Mr. Mayor, what surprises me is that Councilman Duncan wasn't equally angered. It surprises me that all 8 of you were not screaming after realizing the extent of what our system was leaking. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Johns has made repeated statements that this investigation is a joke. Councilman Johns was the first councilman that walked out of the executive session when Chief Pasquarella was presenting to council, so he never even saw the complete presentation. He also stated at the last workshop that he did not read the entire report. The report revealed several members of our local fire department were viewing a rape report of a young woman. The rumor is that this woman is actually a juvenile, a girl. So several curious young firefighters, according to the news report, were viewing the rape report of a girl. I am troubled by this, Mr. Mayor. I am also troubled that Councilman Johns would consider this investigation a joke. Besides saying this publicly, he said it on a radio show, which could jeopardize the municipality's legal position. He was even given the opportunity on the radio to clarify his statements, which he did not. How can anyone possibly say this is okay? How can anyone say this is a joke? He didn't even stay long enough in the executive session to find out how much of a joke this leak was, or was not. Nor did he read the entire report before he declared to the world that the report was a joke. This was the only news report that was mentioned in the news. It is reasonable to believe that other reports were viewed as well. How much of this information from these police reports was shared with others? Was any of this information used to blackmail a witness or a suspect? Was this information used to intimidate political opponents? Police records often include addresses, dates of birth, driver's license numbers, and social security numbers. How many of our citizens have been opened up to identity theft because they trusted that the police department would protect their information? I do not think investigating any of this is a joke, Mr. Mayor. Now, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock's response has also been a bit troubling. He is a healthcare provider himself. He certainly should understand that HIPAA is only one of many privacy rules and regulations that the public expects to be followed. His comments have indicated that he is more concerned with the cost of the investigation than he is with the results. Mr. Mayor, the results of the investigation are frightening. Our dispatch center, fire department, EMS service, and police departments are organizations that we must be able to trust to serve and protect us. But each of these organizations has played a potential role in violating us. That little girl mentioned in the news report was violated, and any of us that used any of the municipal services is also a victim. Our faith and trust in these organizations has been rattled. And, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock is worried about the cost of the investigation. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Grieshock has repeatedly suggested that this investigation could have been handled internally. First of all, Mr. Mayor, that is what the majority of council was trying to get our previous manager to do. His inaction led to council pressuring him to do his job, which led to his resignation. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Dice initially told the press that there was no HIPAA violation. I would speculate that he was led to believe that there was no violation by other municipal officials. When it became apparent that this was a bigger deal than he was led to believe, I think Mr. Dice was wise to suggest that outside counsel be utilized. Mr. Mayor, would you please tell Councilman Grieshock that our own solicitor has stated publicly on multiple occasions that he recommended outside counsel. Dickey, McCamey, and Chilcott and John Daly are all extremely reputable professionals. While the infighting in our community makes great political theater, serious people know this report was professionally done by serious professionals. Trying to derail these professionals only hurts our community. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I am disappointed how you have used the silence of your gavel to let residents attack members of council, the manager, and the chief of police for taking this investigation seriously. You used the silence of your gavel to let residents and political cronies attack other residents. I have been told that you have received a letter from an elderly resident who was afraid to attend council meetings because of the way you let the meetings occur. How dare you, sir, run a meeting where a resident is fearful to attend? I find it ironic that a story regarding the ACLU was on the front page of the Times-Express the day the leak of the special report hit the paper. The ACLU appeared not to be too concerned about the civil liberties of one of our community being partially muzzled when he was out of order at a council meeting. However, I wonder if the ACLU will be concerned about the civil liberties of the young rape victim or any of the thousands of residents whose privacy was violated by their own government. Mr. Mayor, you, Councilman Grieshock, Councilman Johns, and Councilman Duncan are all fathers of daughters, as am I. I am appalled that the four of you are concerned about the process, concerned about the cost, and concerned about those that let this leak continue, and you seem less concerned about the grave violation of that young girl and anyone else that was needed in our public safety department. Providing for the safety of the citizens should be the main priority of any government, and it appears ours has failed badly for a long time. It was not until a majority of council appointed a new manager, Ms. McKinney, and she appointed a new chief of police, Chief Pasquarella, that the serious leak was arrested. Mr. Mayor, you and Councilman Grieshock and Councilman Johns and Councilman Duncan have continued to find ways to protect your special interests rather than your sworn duties to protect the residents. Again, Mr. Mayor, the role of government is to protect the citizens. The majority of council, Chief Pasquarella, and Manager McKinney have done that. You and your minority appear to have chosen a different path. Thank you for letting me address council this evening.